What if the most powerful weapon a commander possesses is not his artillery, his machine guns, or even his tanks, but silence? In the frozen chaos of the Ardennes forest. During the bloodiest battle the United States Army has ever fought, one lieutenant would discover that his broken radio was the only thing standing between his men and annihilation. This is the story of how a dead piece of equipment became a deadly trap, and how one man's decision to stay quiet ambushed an entire German regiment. The date was December 16th, 1944. For 6 weeks, the 114th Radio Signals Company had been positioned along a seemingly quiet sector of the front. Lines in eastern Belgium. Tech 5 Harry Kolkowitz, a 20-year-old Jewish kid from the Bronx who had lied about his age to enlist, sat hunched over his Hallicrafter S-40B receiver, its green tuning eye glowing in the darkness of his half-track. Kolkowitz was a Morse code interceptor, one of the Army's silent eavesdroppers. His job was simple: listen. For hours on end, he scanned German frequencies, logging every transmission, memorizing the rhythms of enemy operators. And in this line of work, rhythm was everything. Every Morse code operator has a fist, a unique style, a personal cadence in the way they tap out letters. Kolkowitz had learned to recognize the fists of German radio operators the way a man recognizes the voices of his neighbors. The Ardennes was considered a ghost front, a place where exhausted divisions were sent to rest. The thick forests and rugged terrain made large-scale offensive operations seem impossible, especially in the depths of winter. The men of the 114th expected a quiet Christmas. Just after midnight on December 16th, the frozen silence was broken, not by artillery, but by a sound only Kolkowitz could hear. Through his headphones came the unmistakable rhythm of a German radio operator he knew well. It was a fist he had logged before, a dispatcher operating from somewhere across the lines. Kolkowitz's pencil flew across his message pad. The transmission continued, detailing coordinates, unit movements, and timing. By 00:30 hours, he had copied the message completely. He ripped the sheet from his pad and handed it to his sergeant, the trick chief responsible for determining which intelligence was passed up the chain of command to Supreme Headquarters. At 05:30 hours, the world ended. Across a 75-mile front, 2,000 German artillery pieces opened fire simultaneously. The ground convulsed. Trees splintered and fell. Men who had been sleeping in their foxholes died without ever waking. The half-track where Kolkowitz operated. His radio took a direct hit from a shell. Fragment not enough to kill, but enough to silence his equipment. The receiver went dead. Through the smoke and chaos, Kolkowitz saw them, hundreds of Panzers, Mark IVs, Panthers, and the massive King Tigers emerging from the morning fog. Behind them came wave after wave of German infantry, 250,000. German soldiers were crashing into American lines in what would become known as the Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's last desperate gamble to split the Allied armies and seize the port of Antwerp. In the chaos of that first hour, with communications severed and enemy columns advancing on all sides, a lieutenant whose name has been lost to history made a decision. That would change everything. His radio was dead, smashed by the same shell that had wounded 2 of his men. He could have tried to retreat, to fall back and find another unit, but he looked at the map, looked at the terrain, and realized something. The Germans were listening. Every radio intercept unit in the Wehrmacht was tuned to American frequencies. They expected panic. They expected frantic calls for reinforcements, desperate coordinates for artillery support. They expected the airwaves to come alive with the chaos of a surprised and retreating army. Instead, the lieutenant ordered silence. The ambush lasted 45 minutes. When it was over, more than 200 German soldiers lay dead in the snow. 2 tanks had been disabled by bazooka teams. The regiment's advance had been halted cold. The Americans suffered fewer than a dozen casualties. But the lieutenant's silence did more than win a single engagement. By refusing to transmit, by denying the German signals intelligence units the chatter they expected, he created confusion across an entire sector. German commanders expecting to find fleeing Americans found only empty forest and dead radio frequencies. They hesitated. And in war, hesitation is death. But that lieutenant, the one who understood, That silence could be a weapon. His name remains unknown. His actions were never formally recognized. There is no medal in a museum case, no citation in an archive, just the memory of a man who, when his radio died, refused to panic. Who understood that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is nothing at all.